Hello everyone and welcome to the Game Engine programming series where I'm writing a game engine from scratch. Last time I created a couple of controls in WPF that would allow me to create and open projects. Although I don't have a code yet that actually opens or creates new projects. And today I want to write that code so that we finally will be able to create new projects and open them. First, before I start writing this code, I'm going to talk a bit about how I want to implement it, right? If we go here and in, for example, new project view, that is our control that is intended to create new projects with, we see that there is this partial class that inherits from user control. It's partial because, well, obviously part of it is implemented here, and the other part is actually this XAML that will be used by the compiler to generate the rest of the class, right? So if I go here and see what kind of stuff is in the inheritance tree of user control, I can see that there is a lot of stuff that has to do with the UI display, right? So for example, here the content control, the user control inherits from content control, and that inherits from control. And my point is that there is a lot of stuff here that isn't in any way related to creating a game project. So ideally, I wouldn't want to mix that code with the code for our view. So here are a lot of events for mouse handling, mouse and keyboard inputs. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's not related to what I want to do. And that's almost always the case, right? Every use case is different, but you don't want to mix the logic of your program with the user interface program. So that's why I am going to create another class. And the way I want to do it is, well, we have this control now. This represents the class that I am using for project creation. And what I want to do is to create a class that has the specific things for my use case for creating a project. For example, I wanted to have these properties or these fields for name and path and a list of templates. Basically, that's a code reflection of what we see here. But there will also be functions that operate on these fields. For example, we'll have a function to validate the name and path of the project, and there will be a function to obviously create a project. So what I want to do is to couple these two classes together somehow. Unfortunately, WPF provides me with a means to do this, and that's the MVVM design pattern, which stands for Model View Model Design Pattern. So in this case, this is this display of controls is my view, and the logics behind it, the business end, is my view model, which also contains my model. Model is basically all the data that you need to do the work. And the view model is all the code that handles everything that needs to be done with the data. So in order to be able to couple these two together or to bind them, I need to implement an interface that is iNotify property changed interface. And this interface just has an event that is fired every time one of my view model's properties change. The way this works is that I can set this class as the data context for my control and bind each property to these controls. And whenever this event fires, these fields will get notified that something changed. The other way around is also possible, that if the user types a new name here, then it will change the field in the view model. So this is basically what I almost always do with user interface construction in WPF. So what does that mean in code? In code, that means that I have to now create a new class. I'm going to call this new project. And as I said before, I have to implement this iNotify property changed interface. But since I'll have a lot of these kind of view model classes in the editor, I don't want to implement this every time I make a view model. What I do is I'll have a base class for all my view models. View model base view model, or view model base. Maybe that's the better name for it. And this will implement the iNotify property changed interface. Now I'm going to generate a class for this, like so. I'm going to put it in a separate file in a minute, but for now I'm writing it just here. And this base class will implement this iNotify property changed interface. And this interface just has one event that gets fired whenever a property has changed. So the way it gets fired is through a method, protected method, that is available to anything that it inherits from it, called onPropertyChanged. And it gets just the name of the property that has been changed and fires this event. So here we check if any event handler has been attached to this event. So if its value is not null, that means that something has been attached to it. And if so, we can invoke the event like so. And that's all we have to do. Now I'm going to put this in a separate file so that it can be accessed from everywhere in the project. Going to create a common folder and add a new class to it. Okay, I do want it to be accessible from everywhere, so I'm going to remove this common namespace, and then make sure that the component model is included here. And that's good. Close this. Now I can start writing the rest of my view model for creating a new project. Like I described before, there will, for example, be a property for name of the project. So the way we create this kind of bindable properties, that's with red, orange lines here, is like a regular property, right? So here we have a private backing field. So there will be a name field. I'm going to give this a default value, in this case, new project. Okay. And there is a property for it. So public with a normal getter, which returns the name. And the setter will check if the name is a different value, and if so, we will assign the new value to the name. Now the difference between this bindable kind of property and a regular property is now that we changed the value of this name, we also call this onProperty changed event with the name of this property. And whenever we now bind this property to our control, for example, here we have the text box for a name. I can now bind this the text for the text box with name. Of course, I haven't set this class as my data context yet. One of the ways I can do it is in the XAML itself. So here I can create an instance of the new project viewModel class. That creates a new instance of this new project and sets it as the data context. The data context is an object. If I can look it up here. So in framework elements, there is a data context. Here it's just a property and its type is object. That means that it could be anything. By doing this, I create an instance of new project and set it as the data context. Now, if I am going to bind the properties of the data context, I would like to have some kind of autocomplete. I don't think... let me see if I have, for example, if I do this for path. So if I want to bind my second text box for path to this property path, okay, there is also a path. Sometimes when we don't have this explicit data context here, then this XAML editor, of course, won't know what kind of data context we have. So this kind of suggestion doesn't happen, which makes it a bit difficult to, well, you can make mistakes in names of the properties if you don't have this. Luckily, there is a way to make sure that Visual Studio knows what data context you are using. I can set this designer instance to a type of my data context, and tell Visual Studio that is design time constructible. And so whenever I don't have this, so I can remove this now, and I still have this autocompletion or suggestion for available properties, right? So if I don't have this, then yeah, this is something else now, but name won't be there, right? Okay. Now I can also see that it recognized the value of my path. My path, of course, hasn't got the correct value yet. I can set another default value, and that one would be one of my special folders for the current user. For example, my document would be a good place to start. So using environment get folder path, I can get one of these special folders, and that is like this. And I will append this primal project path at the end. So all the projects that we create in primal project will be in this folder. Of course, the user can type in another address or another folder path to create the projects in somewhere else, and that's okay too. But this one is just the default value that we start with. Now, if I go back to my control and I compile again, there should be this value. Oh, I have made an error of not renaming this. Now, if I go back to my control in new project view, I can see this path also displayed, and that's good. So the next thing I want to do is to generate a list of available templates. So what I have already done is that here in Primal, I have created a project templates folder with a couple of folders for each kind of game templates that I want to have. And for now, the only thing I have done is to put an icon in it and a screenshot. So there is, for example, for an empty project is an icon that tells it's empty, and there is an empty screenshot. And if I go, for example, to the third person, then there is this icon and the screenshot. In each folder, I want to have a file that describes the templates, that describes the project. So I'll create a template as XML. And in here, I want to have the description of my project. So what is a project template? I'm going to model this project template by using a class. So this project template has a name, of course, or a type actually. So I'm going to have a regular property of type string, and it's a project type. I want to have one more for project file. The project file is a name of the file that is going to be our game project. So for example, this name of the project will be the name of our project file. And of course, I want to have a list of folders that I would like to create for my new game project. For example, there will be a folder that contains game assets, 3D models, textures, animations, etc. And there will be a folder for game code. So all the codes that a game creator writes, or a game programmer writes, goes in there. And maybe in the future there will also be some more default folders that I will create. But for now, those are the two that I need. Actually, there is three, because I want also to have a private folder for the editor to put stuff in it that is not well, I want to do something like Visual Studio or Git do. Here we have two hidden folders. You can see they are hidden because they are a bit darker in color than the regular folders. And they put Visual Studio, for example, put its own bookkeeping stuff for bookkeeping here. Primal Editor needs something like this as well to put like temporary files in it that don't need to be seen by the user of the editor. So I'll have one folder for that as well. For now, there is a list of folder names. And that's kind of it. So I want to generate this this XML file here first, and then I'll change it by hand to for each type of template project. So to do that, I am going to make a constructor for this class, and then have a list that I can use to put all these folders that I find in it. I'm going to first find all the template directories. So I'll have a template path that points to this location first. So it's a private read-only string. Of course, this is a path that would be included with the binary of this primal editor. So hard coding is like this isn't really correct, because if you would install primal editor somewhere else, then maybe this path wouldn't be correct anymore. So I'm going to put a to-do here for this. Okay, but for now it will do. I'm going to use this template path to find all the folders that contain this template XML file, and I want to search all subdirectories as well. And this will give us a list of templates. Put this in a try catch block, because I'm going to read from files and deserialize or serialize to XML. There will be a possibility of something throwing an exception, so I'm going to catch that here and output it to the debug output of Visual Studio. And later on, of course, I want to log the errors in a proper way, so that we don't, well, if you don't use Visual Studio and run the editor standalone, then of course we can't see anything like this. So we do have to make our own log for this. But for now, I'm going to use this. This is template files. I'm going to assert that it contains at least one template. So we should have at least one template to be able to create a new project. And now for each of these templates, or for each of these files that we found, I'm going to read in the templates. But as you can see now, this template is just an empty file. So first I'll write to it and then copy it to other folders as well. And then, well, when we are done, then we can read back from it. So for now, I'll just create a new template. And I'll use name or a type for it. It's empty project. And a project file is a file name. So this name, the project, will be, when we create our project, we will change this to the name of the project. So that will be changed later on. And of course, for the folders, I need a new list. And that one contains this hidden folder. And one for content, and one for game code. Now I take this file and then write this project template to it. So to do this, I need some kind of deserialization, which is available in .NET Core and .NET Framework. I can use XML serialization, but the better way to do it is by DataContracts, because DataContracts also allow me to serialize private fields. So that's why I'm going with DataContracts. And for each field or member or property that I want to serialize, I can mark it as data member. So I want to have all of this. And of course, I need a method to assist me with serialization. Now I'm going to write a little utility class that allows me to serialize using DataContracts. So first I'll create a new folder. And then add a class serializer. This is just a public static class. Like so. And I'll have a function or a method here that's also static, and it writes to a file. So to file, and it's a generic function that takes a type or an instance of t. So instance. I'm being dyslexic today. Instance of t and a path to save the file. And because I'm writing to files and serializing, those operations could throw exceptions. I'm going to use a try catch block for this. And again, I'm outputting this to Visual Studio output. If it happens, and put a to-do here to do it later on with a proper logging. Okay. So I'm going to create a file stream for this using this path, and I'm going to create the file. So it should be create mode. And of course, I need a DataContract serializer to use with this file stream. Not the JSON one, but the regular one that outputs XML. Well, we could also use JSON, but I can't. JSON is a bit more difficult to read. So that's why I'm using XML. Whenever I want to write not to a file per se. I can use another kind of stream as well, but for now I want to write to a file. Now I can use this function to write here, to write to a file. Oh, this one should be the template that I want to serialize. Now I already have set this as the data context, so there will be an instance of this class created whenever I open the editor. So I can set a breakpoint here now and see if that happens. I have this one file created here, so it should find at least one of these files. Let's see. Yeah, it has one file in it. That's this one. And this will write to it if everything goes okay. Let's see. Didn't throw an exception. And application is started. Okay, so now I go back to this file and see what happened to it. There is like one line of code and I can rearrange it to see what is in it. As you can see, there is a project template and this list of folders. Name of the project file, and there is also the project type. So that's all good. I can save it like this, and then I can copy this to other folders as well and just change this, because the only way that they differ right now is only by the project type. Well, I have generated my template, so I don't need this anymore. Now I need to go through these folders and read those templates in. So now it's the other way around. I have to create a method in Serializer that instead of to file will read from it. So it's from file and it gets a project template for me from this path, right? And I do exactly the same as I did here, but then the other way around. Now I have to read from objects. And I have a data type of, well, actually it should be an instance of this. And this one should be open. And this is of course a string. And this is the file. Yeah, and then of course I have to return this object from this file. And if something goes wrong, I have to return some default value of t. In this case, if t is a reference type, like a normal class, it will return null. And if it's a value type, like a struct, then it will return the default of that particular type. Now I have this method that deserializes from a file, and I can use this to create my template with. And I want to put this template in a list, right? So I need for this, instead of using a regular list, I'm going to use a special kind of list that I can use to bind to my view, and that's an observable collection. Okay, so this one's private, so it can't be used by the view or the control. So I need to use a public one to expose it to the outside world, but I don't want other people to be able to add to this list or remove items from it. For that, I'm using a read-only observable collection of project templates. And it's just a property that's read-only, so it's just a getter. And I have to assign a value to it in the constructor. Now I can use this list and bind it to our list of templates in the control. So remember, we have this list box here. Now I can go and set its items to the project templates. Let's see what happens. Okay, now I forgot to add these to the list, so I can do it here. Okay. So I have a template here for the empty project. That's good, and the folders are here as well. And then I can add all of them. Now I can see there are 4 objects here. That's good, but I haven't told the control how to display them. So I can now go ahead and do that as well. The way I can do that is by telling this list box how to display its items. So one thing that I can do already is to put an image in this border. So this will contain the image, and oh well, let's first read a bit more data in before I can do this. Here in this project template, I want to read in the data for these icons and screenshots, and yeah, construct a bit more data to be displayed. So for that, I need an array of bytes, like a binary array of for the icon. I'm going to read that PNG file in here. I'll do the same for that screenshot. And I'm going to remember where these files are, because I need to copy them to the destination folder for project, for the game project, right? So here I need a property that is the icon file path, and I need one for the screenshot file path, and one for the project file path. So in this constructor, while I'm reading this template, I can now go and fill in those fields as well. For example, I can have this template icon file path. I can get that from the path included in this file, right? I need a static class here from system.io. So because I am using a path property, it kind of collides with this system IO path. So I'm going to change these to project path and project name. And here I need to change this as well. Project name and project path. Now I can get the directory of my template file and then append the name of the icon file to it. It's still telling me that it's ambiguous. Oh, shapes. I need to remove shapes. Okay. I don't need shapes. Now I have the file path for icon. I do the same for the screenshot. And here for icon, I can read all the bytes of that file into this icon. And do the same for a screenshot. And for the project file path, I will do the same, but then I will use the project file name for that. So here I have template, project file, and this one is a project file name, path, I'm sorry. Okay, now we have all the data that we need to use with our control, and I can go back here and tell the control how to display these data. This border needs to display whatever template we select from this list. So I need a name for this list to be able to refer to it. And then I have this border, the background, which is an image brush, and I can bind its source to whatever is selected. So selected item, but the selected item is of type project template, so I get its screenshot. And the element where I get this selected item is the template list box. So this should display the screenshot. And in the list box, I'm going to tell the list box how to display the name and the icon. And I can have a horizontal stack panel that displays the icon first and the project type next to it. I put a little bit of space between the icon and the name of the project, or the project template. Okay, let's build and run and see what happens. And I don't see anything yet, so let's see what is wrong here. Here. So I'm getting the path and the data as well. And something went wrong here. So now if I look at the output, I can see, hopefully see what went wrong. And that path was apparently 0. So let's see what path that was. Okay, I forgot to put this. There's a copy-paste error. It's a screen file path, of course. And now it's not null anymore. And that should give us our list and our screenshots, or the template pictures, basically. So this is a top-down one, and then we have the third person, first person, which has a camera on his hat, and the empty. Okay. One more thing I want to do is to give this list box a selection when I open it, because now I have to click on one of these items to make its picture visible. I want to already have one selected item, and I can do that here. By setting the selected index to 0, that selects the first element in the list. Now this is already selected, and yeah, this is good. Of course, we still can't create a project, and that's what I am going to do next time. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please feel free to like and subscribe. If you join me on Patreon, you'll get access to the code on GitHub, so you don't have to type everything over from the video. Plus, there are also other nice goodies and rewards exclusive to my Patreon supporters. Please use the link in the video description to check them out. I hope to see you next time. Until then, take care and happy game engineering.